Hi, my name's Caden George, and my presentation is over the poem Keep Going by Edgar Guest. Who was Edgar Guest? Edgar Guest was known as the people's poet. This is because his pieces of literature were usually written to inspire people and the youth. He had a rough childhood. He was forced to drop out of high school and work at a newspaper place. He then worked really hard to get from the bottom to the top at the newspaper company, and he was finally able to get one of his poems in the newspaper. And then his poems eventually began to take off, and his poems are almost all of them are like motivational type of poems and overcoming struggles. And as you can see, his life kind of reflects that and in his poems. So that's pretty cool to see. And here's the poem, Keep Going. I'm not going to read it because I have a video that someone else is going to read it, and it makes the poem sound better and there's more emotion when reading it. So here is the poem. This wasn't read by Edgar Guest, but it was read by someone else, but it's better than my own voice, so.
Keep Going by Edgar A. Guest. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, and the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns. And many a failure turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have captured the victor's cup. And he learned too late when the night slipped down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when you're hardest hit. It's when things seem worst that you mustn't quit. Keep going.
So yeah, that's a pretty motivational and inspiring poem, and that voiceover and like that reading just made it sound even more like inspiring, I would say, than my own voice. So that's why I decided to add this video in here. So to get into the line by line analysis, this is stanza one, and I just did for each stanza, and there's four stanzas because if I did each line, then I would have like 25 slides. So I just went stanza by stanza, and the stanza's on the left in the yellow, then my analysis is on the right. So, as shown in Edgar's first stanza, he rhymes in his poem every first and second line, and then he rhymes every third and fourth line, and this keeps going on throughout the poem. Um, the final line of the stanza, rest if you must, but don't you quit. This represents the title of the poem and sets up the rest of the stanzas. And repetition is used when starting many of the lines with when, and you can see this in the first, second, third, and fourth line when things go wrong, when the road, when the funds, when care is pressing. And this is just repetition throughout, and this is shown a lot throughout the poem. So that's stanza one. And here's stanza two. In the first line, an alliteration is used by saying twists and turns, and this is because they both start with T and they're like right next to each other. And also, figurative language is used at the end of this stanza by stating you may succeed with another blow. And he's not literally talking about getting hit or something like that. He's talking about like another struggle that comes at you and adversity. And how you respond to that might make you succeed and stuff like that. And that's what he's implying there. He's not meaning that you're going to take another blow, like get hit or anything like that. Um, uh, this stanza represents overcoming the struggle and adversity life throws at you and you don't quit. and there's quite a few lines in the stanza that show that. For example, when he might have won had he stuck it out, and this is just overcoming the adversity and stuff like that. Don't give up though the pace seems slow, and this is just another line showing that. He's just saying keep going. Life is all about struggles and things like that. So it's pretty motivational, I would say. Line by line analysis, stanza three. As shown in each stanza, Edgar rhymes in his poem every two lines. This sets up a good rhythm throughout the poem. And since he does this every two lines, rhyming, it makes the poem flow as if it were a song. And you could kind of see that in that video that I showed earlier. And it just makes the poem better. And I feel like you connect to it more when it's more like a song. Repetition is shown in this stanza by starting out a line with the word often, and this is seen twice. Often the goal is nearer than, and often the struggler has given up. So this is just another thing of repetition shown. Um, and Imagery and alliteration is shown when he says, "It seems to a faint and faltering man," and that's obviously alliteration. And then faint and faltering are kind of description words, and it kind of gives you an image in your head. Um, a metaphor is used when he says how close he was to the golden crown, and he's referring golden crown to success. So that was a metaphor that he used in the stanza. Um, and this is the final stanza, stanza four, and this stanza ends with something very similar to the end of the first stanza, which represents the theme of the entire poem. And he says, "It's when things seem worse that you must not quit." And he says a similar line. He says, "Rest if you must, but don't you quit." And these are very similar, and it kind of represents the theme of the poem. Um, and he also uses Edgar uses lines like "success is failure turned inside out," and these lines are lines that need to be interpreted because they have a good meaning to it. And the meaning of this is he's trying to say in this line that there's always success even in the struggle. And this is an important message to people because people seem to get down when they're struggling, but there's always success in the struggle, which is a very motivational line. Poem pattern. A pattern that I found in this poem is the first two lines of a stanza will rhyme, and then the third and fourth lines will rhyme, and this continues all the way throughout the poem. The pattern of this poem makes it easy to read and helps the reader maintain a good flow throughout the poem. An example is the first two lines end with the words will and hill, and the next two lines end with hindsight, but this was shown all throughout the poem, which you already noticed, obviously. And the pattern of the poem makes it seem as if it were a song, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, and it just makes the poem come off better, and I would say more motivational. Um, why I chose this poem? I chose this poem because of the message it gives off. It teaches people to keep going even when the odds are stacked against you. A lot of people today struggle with mental health, so a poem like this reminds them to keep pushing, and everything will eventually get better. And this is a very, very powerful message, especially considering the day and age today when a lot of people are struggling with mental health. And this is just kind of reminding them to keep pushing and everything will get better. The theme. The theme is that sometimes life will be difficult and seems like an uphill battle, but it is how you respond to adversity because you are closer to the top of the hill than you think. This is such an important message because people struggle every day and don't know if they can keep fighting adversity. And they are not sure if everything is going to get better. This poem shares a theme with people that can motivate them to conquer their struggles and get the golden crown, as Edgar would say. And this theme is shown in each stanza. Obviously, I've talked about this, and it's just like a really powerful message, um, especially for people that are struggling and don't know if they can keep going. This kind of reminds them that everything will get better. I have a few questions for the class as well, and a few of the questions are keep going talks about tough times and how you have to keep going. Do you think this poem could help inspire and motivate people of all ages? Second question. In the poem Keep Going, what do you think the purpose of this poem is, and why is the purpose important to society? Um, Third question. In the poem Keep Going, what lines refer to him struggling, and what lines refer to him overcoming the struggle after? So these are just a few questions I have for the class, and you can respond to these in the discussions if you'd like. Um, Overall, I'd say the poem consisted of a decent amount of literary devices. It wasn't a bunch for how big the poem or for how long the poem was, but the poem was just really motivational and inspiring, and I felt like people that read it, it could definitely help them in their everyday life and overcoming struggles that they'll face every day. So that's why I chose it, and I was hoping that when someone reads it, it could leave a positive impact on them. So, yeah, this was my